Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video we are going to be making this dress inspired by Rebecca Tembo, so definitely keep on watching. Starting with our front bodies, I'm going to be placing my tape for the vertical measurements. So for the armhole we have 8.5, bust line 11 inches, under bust 14 inches, and waistline 17 inches. Also for the shoulder we have 8 inches for the width of the shoulder. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and place the nipple to nipple measurement. So I'll be placing my tape at the center front and I'll be marking 4 inches on the bust line, under bust, and waistline. Next I'm going to go ahead and mark ½ inch on both sides on the under bust and the waistline. And then I'm just going to go ahead and roll that in. Moving on to the neckline of the dress, so I'm placing my tape at the top and then I'm marking 6.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark 6.5 inch. You can decide to use 5 inch, 5.5 or 6 inches. So whichever one you choose. But I decided to go with 6.5 because I didn't want the top to be so high. So now I'm just going to go ahead and use my pencil with my curved ruler to just draw out the shape of the neckline that I want. Okay, take note of this armhole line that I'm marking here. So I decided to bring the armhole a bit up. Later I'll show you guys and I'll tell you the reason why I did that. So now I'm going to go ahead and use marker to just outline the neckline so that you can see what I'm doing better. So moving on, we are going to be placing 4 inches at our top of our neckline. So what we want to do now is take the upper bust darts, so it's like the bust tightening. Okay, so I'm just going to be connecting my ruler from my 4 inch on the bust line up to above the neckline. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and place our tape on that 4 inch line and mark 1 inch on both sides. Sorry, so I'm going to be marking 1 inch on both sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect from the dot to my bust line on both sides. Next we're going to go ahead and place our body measurements. So on the chest line I'm going to be adding my measurements. So I added my bust measurements plus the 2 inches that we took for the upper bust darts for the bust tightening. So I'm going to be adding that plus ½ inch for my sewing allowance. Then on the bust line you're going to be adding the bust measurements. The little allowance you have there, you can use like ½ inch or less than for the allowance, and then plus your sewing allowance. Okay, and then for my waistline I added my waistline measurement plus the 1 inch we took in for the darts, and then my sewing allowance. You can decide to make use of 1 inch sewing allowance or ½ inch sewing allowance, whichever works for you is good. So I'm also going to go ahead and place my waist measurement with my dart allowance and my sewing allowance. Now I'm just going to go ahead and connect those lines together. Moving on to the back, I'm going to be placing my tape to show you the length of my top, which is 17 inches, just like the way we have in the front. And then I also marked my chest line and my bust line. So now we are going to go ahead and mark our nipple to nipple mark, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to be marking that on my bust line and my waistline. I'm also going to go ahead and place ½ inch on both sides on my waistline. Now we are moving up towards the chest line, okay, and now we are going to be marking the 4 inch. So we are taking the 4 inch a little bit higher than we had in the front, which stopped at the bust line. So now I'm just going to be connecting that to the chest line there, and then I'll be connecting the dot lines. Now moving on to the armhole of the top front. So I decided to make the armhole in line with my natural armhole. So I didn't make it lower, so I just aligned it. You can see what I'm doing right there on the chest line. So I aligned it with my chest line, okay? That way the back and the front armhole can easily be the same thing, okay? So they can easily be the same thing. So that is what I did. That's the change I made with the front armhole, and I replicated that for the back armhole. So now, since we have an equal line that we want to make use of both front and back, which is the chest line, I'm just going to go ahead and mark 8.5, which is my chest line, and then I'll make sure that it's the same thing there, and I'm just going to go ahead and join those two lines together. So now we have our back neckline. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my body measurement. So you just add up your body measurements plus the dart allowance and your sewing allowance. So I'm just going to be placing that on my chest line. I'll be adding my body allowance plus that tiny itty bitty allowance for the dart line there and my sewing allowance, okay? Now I'll go ahead and do the same thing on the bust line. The dart allowance and my sewing allowance, okay? I'll also do the same thing on the waistline. So my waistline measurement plus the 1 inch dart and then my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead and join those lines together. So this is what the back is looking like. Now I just went ahead to mark my paper to just make sure that I know which is which when I'm cutting and placing on the fabric. So moving on to the skirt part of the dress, I'm going to go ahead and place my tape, and I'll show you guys I have a length of 19 inches. So this is just a basic skirt pattern we are working with, okay? So we have a length of 19 inches. You can decide to make yours shorter if you like, but I prefer this length. So for my dart for my skirt, I have 5 inches, which is the normal length for dart lines for skirts, and then ½ inch on both sides, which is making it 1 inch dart. So for the hips of the skirt, we are going to be placing our tape and taking in 3 inches. After marking 3 inches, we'll be coming down to the hem of the skirt where we'll be marking 4 inches. So I'm marking that 4 inches so that the line between the 3 inches and the 4 inches, which is the hip and the hem, will be straight. So we don't want any slanted lines, okay? So that's the goal of it. Okay, so now we have a straight line. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use my pencil and then just curve out the hip line here, so you can see what I'm doing. I went ahead to use pencil and then I used my marker. So now to the hem of the skirt, we're going to go ahead and mark 5.5 inches. Okay, take note of that. So I'm marking 5.5 inches and we are connecting that to the 4 inch that we have for our waist dart. So it's going to be sort of slanted, okay? So just take note of that. So we are marking with the red marker is where we're going to be cutting out. So you can see that I already marked that out, and then that blue line also marks for the fact that we won't be making use of that line, and the red line is the new line. Okay, so now we are just cutting out the skirt pattern. So this one skirt pattern is what you are going to be using for both your front and your back. All you are going to do is take notes of where is the center of your skirt and also mark it zip allowance, although I didn't mark mine. So this is what the pieces are looking like after cutting. So this is the lining piece, and then I'm just showing you what they are looking like. Okay, so I cut out the main fabric, which is on fold, and then the front fabric, front lining, which is on fold, and the other one with the zipper allowance for the skirt parts. Okay, now for the front, the main fabric, this is what it's looking like. I joined both of them together. So to watch the second part of this tutorial is going to be coming up next, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the part 2. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do make sure to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.